For those that haven't met us before, I'm Robin Bennett, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Dog Gurus. Susan Briggs is also here. She's the other co-founder. And we try to come on here and talk to our folks about just various topics that are affecting the industry right now, of which staff training is probably the number one issue right now. So we want to talk a little bit about onboarding and training your team. We just recently did a webinar on this, so we're going to recap some of the highlights of that webinar and then answer any questions as well. But I will start by saying we know hiring has been tough. We actually just did a call with some of our members about hiring, and across the board, across the United States at least, hiring is a struggle right now. It's really hard to find employees. It's really hard to pay them what they want to get paid. We know it's an issue, but we also know that onboarding and training can help to retain your staff. So once you get them, we want to try to keep them. And there's a whole lot that goes into the finding and hiring the right person, which we're not going to talk about today, but we are going to talk about, once you have that person, how you can keep them happy, keep them engaged, and keep them hopefully with you for a long time. So with that, Susan, I'll let you just kick it off with whatever you want to start with.
Okay. Yeah, this has been a topic that I've been doing some research on to see, and it is pretty global, that a quality onboarding process can be a difference maker in retaining employees, which I think makes sense, Robin. To us, we've always said that we need to make a good first impression. And so we've focused on that. One of the things that I found interesting in some of the research I've done lately is most people say your onboarding should last at least 90 days, if not an entire year, which I
That's a
don't think
lot.
I've ever, yeah, I've never thought about it in that perspective, but it takes that long. And once you can have employees with you that long and engaged, then you have such a higher likelihood of them becoming a really high contributor to your team. So I definitely found that interesting.
Well, and I think too, how many, if we really think about it, and we know we've talked about this because when we put together Knowing Dogs and then now Pet Guru College, we talked about what can you really expect an employee to know within a week or two. And I know a lot of us, we talk about some of the best facilities that we work with. They're like, they new employees don't even get with the dogs for at least 2 weeks, which we think is totally understandable. Like, you want to make sure that they know what they're doing before you let them with their dogs. But even after 2 weeks of training, what do they really know? And I think back to when I first had dogs off leash, and it's scary. And at that time it was like 4 dogs. But I distinctly remember being a little freaked out because there were these 4 dogs playing and they were all off leash, and it's a little overwhelming. So you think about now, of course, 20 years into this, I can get with a group of dogs and it doesn't bother me at all. At least I know what I'm seeing. It only bothers me now if I'm seeing things that scare me, but at least I know what I'm seeing. But you really think about it, like, how long does it take for your employees to get really good? And when we have the daycare games coming up, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, but we actually set up the daycare games so that brand new employees and employees that have been there a little bit long, and then employees that have been there for quite a while, they all have different levels of goals for the daycare games, because we knew a brand new employee is not going to be as good with the dogs as someone that's been there 10, 12 months or longer. So
Yeah.
it makes sense when you really think about it. And then I also think when you think about all the things they have to learn, everything, canine body language is obviously a big, huge one, but just learning how to clean and learning all your systems. And if you've got scrubbers or you've got floor, the wishy wash or whatever those systems are, they have to learn. And then they have to learn all the dogs, they have to learn all the clients, they have to learn whatever POS system. There's a lot. So it does make sense that onboarding should last a long time. But you think about, I posted in the comments, what does your onboarding look like? Think about, you get somebody after a week or a couple of days, you're losing your engagement with them because now they're in some kind of system where somebody else is training them usually. And then after a week, I don't even know that the trainer's really following up with them in many cases. And after a month, you're like, they're here and they're doing good and whatever. And then you'll get frustrated because they're not doing everything the right way. But if you don't have a system to continually follow up with them and make sure they're learning what they need to be learning, and you haven't just given them a fire hose of information, I think that can be a challenge. So all that is to say, I think that really looking at your onboarding process is important and making sure you're giving them enough information to make them productive, but not so much you're overwhelming them.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of us don't realize that we're doing is that people get so overwhelmed that they get frustrated because they feel like they're not getting it and they're not doing well. And they don't have the confidence to do their job. So they just walk away. It's not worth it. Some of the research I did said that 69% of employees are more likely to stay 3 years if they experience great onboarding. And
Oh,
wouldn't
that's
that be
amazing.
nice to have
Yeah, that's great.
employees there for 3 years? And they say that strong onboarding can improve productivity by 70%. It's kind of like it's hard to invest that time up front, but the returns you get on the backside are so much better. So I think that if you feel like you're on that turnover wheel, that you've got to stop and make some changes to get off and try it and see if it gets better because it is really hard. And I think we've talked about this. It's hard to remember everything you didn't know the first day you walk in.
Yeah, and I think we can say from the folks that we've talked to that really have a strong onboarding process, they definitely talk about the fact that their staff is more successful, that they're able to succeed better, and all of that goes into an employee who wants to stay with you versus one that's frustrated. And I always use the example of that, perfect employee that we all want. We all want the person that is a thinks on their own, takes initiative, has good judgment, that A team player. That's what everybody wants. I can tell you because I am an A team player. Like I want to succeed when I go someplace and work. Well, I'm also the same kind of person, and this is, I think, common for A team players that get frustrated and don't want to put up with a bunch of crap either. Like, and here's an example I was actually thinking of when we got on our call is for those of you, and I know Susan will know exactly what I'm talking about. Susan and I will go to a conference or we'll go to a seminar somewhere or we'll go someplace where we're in person live somewhere. We both look at the systems and the processes going on. And we point out, like, why are we standing in this line for 4 hours? If they did this and this, like this line would be so much smoother. Or they won't give us information that we need to know, like basic information, or they don't give us a handout, or they give us the handout late and we've already taken notes. Like those little tiny inconsistencies or inefficiencies, people like me and Susan, those 18 players that you really want to hire, those people hate that. They're the first people that will be like, okay, there's no system here, there's no process, like whatever, I'm out of here. And it's not because they're not good employees. A lot of times, your best employees are going to be the ones that look at your onboarding process, or when you don't have one, get frustrated and then go someplace else where they can see what they can do to be a valued member of that team. And they don't have to sit through all the inefficiencies. So, thinking about that to me is what really drives me to say we really need a good system because those people are coming in and going, these people aren't even organized. I don't want to work in an environment like that. And so you
And you
sometimes lose your best employees.
Yeah, you work so hard to find them and hire them. Isn't it worth the effort to create a good onboarding system? And the thing about your onboarding system is once you get it set up, it's just rinse and repeat. And you don't have to recreate it every time. And what I learned in this research is orientation and onboarding are different. Orientation is getting people familiar with your company, which usually can happen in a week or two and meet everybody and meet your job. But onboarding is more encompassing. It includes the orientation part, it includes the staff training, the actual training part, but then it's also that communication and follow up that happens over that first year of making sure that skills are mastered and that people are performing the job, like you say, at the level you want them to. So if they start out and they're at some of the novice levels of skill performance, you're providing feedback and coaching over the next 9 months to help them do better. And it's also listening to them about their ideas on the training and do they have the resources to do the job the way you want them to.
One of the things that we talked about when we talked about this a couple weeks ago is that first of all, hiring for culture. So You want to hire the right people for your culture to begin with. And then that the second thing I remember that we talked about was that having that great first day, and that really setting that person up where it's not a fly by night situation, regardless of what might happen the day they come in. Like, we get people that come in for their first day, and if it's totally chaotic and you're like, "Oh, I forgot you were coming in," or, "Oh, yeah, hang on, we'll be with you in a second," that doesn't set the employee up for a good experience to begin with. And then
Yeah.
go ahead, Susan.
I was gonna say, and when I did research on onboarding, a lot of the examples of bad onboarding were related to things happening like that on the first day. They weren't expected, or they had to wait for their boss, or they weren't told what to wear. And first day is just sacred, and you've got to put energy in, and your new hire should be the most important thing you do that day.
And I used to volunteer at a place, and it used to drive me crazy when they would hire a new employee. I was just a volunteer, but they would hire new employees, and it would be the new employee's first day, and they would walk into an office where the old employee's name is still on the door. And I'd be like, "Don't you think you should change that? Like, that doesn't really set a good first impression. Well, who's this guy? Oh, yeah, that's the guy you're replacing. Sorry, we didn't really care enough about you to actually change to your name, even though that guy's been gone for 3 weeks or whatever." Like, it used to drive me crazy. And I know it's harder. That was a place that had a lot more basic office building, so that they didn't have the chaos of a pet care facility. I do think it's a lot harder to set that perfect first day up, because you do have to make sure somebody's on hand to take care of that employee, whether that's you or typically somebody that's in charge of training your staff. But you, as the business owner or the general manager, you want to make sure that you're available that day as well, to go in and greet the person and welcome them and all of that. But you want to set that up so there's actually a system in place. Okay, the first hour of your day, maybe you're just filling out paperwork, or here's all the stuff that we need to fill out and bring back later, or whatever. You want to have a definite time frame where they meet everybody, a definite time frame where they can have lunch, ideally with some other employees, so that they can start building some friendships there. And then whatever they're going to learn, it's all systematized in some format. And yeah, you have to be flexible because other things might go on during the day, but you want to have a system in place, and then
And have that plan B in mind. If something happens, what is plan B? So you're not scrambling at the last minute to figure it out. So you're going to want other people to know what the plan is for the day. And you mentioned them going out to lunch. One of that's so important is getting that feeling of belonging and meeting people. So making sure they're introduced to everybody, but do give opportunities for that social time. That's a key thing for making someone feel welcome. I hated starting new jobs. In fact, I would stay in a job longer just so I didn't have to go out and get another one and meet people and do all that again. And I think today, a lot of people, it is that social anxiety about starting a new job. So the more you can take that away, the better, and make them feel welcome and find some peers, maybe people they met during the interview process, or some, if you have someone that's just super friendly and gets along with everybody, buddy them up and pay for lunch. It's a small investment that you can make in someone that you've worked really hard to hire to set up that great first day. And I think it would be a fun thing to brainstorm with team members. What would make a really good first day, especially some people that haven't been there that long? How can we do
yeah,
better for our first day?
I was actually going to say sometimes the best ideas will about how to improve your onboarding process will come from the last employee to go through it. So if you've got recent new hires, they generally go to them and ask them for their help and their opinion. They're going to tell you because it's fresh in their mind. Oh yeah, I remember being totally overwhelmed, or oh, like I ate lunch by myself that day. That was that kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, but ask them for feedback so that you can improve the process. So Sarah had said, I'm brand new to hiring and will be moving into a new location, and will need to hire actual employees versus contractors. Is it reasonable for my first hire, hopefully that A-team player, to help create the systems and processes needed and to help document them? Well,
I'd say
also,
it depends.
what did you say, Susan?
I think it depends. If you're hiring a worker bee, then I don't think that's fair, because I think the worker bee is going to expect that you've got that figured out and laid out. If you're hiring someone that's going to be more in a manager position, then maybe you've got to. and think about the skill set and knowledge that you're hiring for and that you're wanting to train the person to do, and is developing and documenting procedures in that skill set and knowledge base. I don't know. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I would say the same thing. I think it depends on what your job description is for that person you're hiring. If it's like Susan said, if it's a worker bee, I think you could reasonably teach that person whatever the processes are that they're going to use for their job. Let's say it's cleaning the kennels or letting dogs out for a walk, or maybe it's letting, answering the phones, whatever it is. I think those worker bees who are doing that job, they can help you document the process if you don't have documentation done yet. So I think that's reasonable. But in terms of creating the systems, I think those have to be in place unless you hire somebody who you're actually hiring as a supervisor or manager level. And then even then, catch 22, because you have to really make sure that they don't feel like you've hired them and now they're doing all the work in a vacuum. So
Yeah.
that really has to be formed as a partnership between you and that new general manager or that new supervisor or whatever it is, so that they don't feel like it's all up to them. And if because you can set somebody up for failure that way too. I
Yeah,
think
and I
you
think
gotta
you
learn
also,
a little bit of it before you bring them on.
yeah, what we hear a lot of is sometimes when owners step away too soon from work processes, then they come back into their business and it's like, why are we doing it this way? We're not getting the outcomes I expect or want from my business. So you've got to have that clarity of what does the end result need to look like as far as quality of care, client care, how much time is spent doing different things so that you can ensure if you hand off developing those processes to someone else, you still have those same outcomes that you're expecting as a business owner.
Yeah, so Sarah said, so I just need to make it clear in the job description what I'm looking for. You do have to make it clear in the job description that is going to be part of their job, but it also goes back to what Susan said a second ago. Are those key skills going to appear in the same person?
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that, here's an example that I like to use. I started out doing dog training. So I've done dog training forever. I know lots and lots of dog trainers are great at the training dogs. Not every dog trainer is really good or wants to be or cares about at all being in charge of other trainers. So a lot of times we'll get an email from someone who says, I'm trying to find a dog trainer who will manage my whole dog training program. That dog trainer who wants to manage an entire program of and other trainers is a unicorn. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you can't find them. I'm saying it's a lot harder. You can find somebody that might be able to manage an entire training program, and you can find lots of trainers who really want to train dogs. But trying to find that one trainer who also wants to manage an entire team of other trainers is a lot harder. So you have to look at the skill sets that you're looking for and decide if those are skills that are actually in one person, and then prioritize your hiring based on that. So obviously that's why we're differentiating the worker, the actual employee who is in the runs, in the daycare, checking dogs in and out in terms of bringing them in the back or bringing them to the front, working hands on with the dogs. That often is a little bit of a different skill set than you're going to have in your managers, where your managers are doing paperwork and checklists and making sure that things are living up to the standards that you've set and that they're reaching the KPIs that you've set, and they're managing people. Those are two different groupings of people generally. So
A shortcut to documenting SOPs instead of thinking about initially having to write them all up, it's get your iPhone, get your a ring light or whatever, and just set it up or get it on a little tripod. Talk and just talk about what you're doing as you're doing it, and can be your first SOPs. Those videos of you doing the processes.
but those are great questions. And I would definitely look at working with your whole team to decide, do you have people with those skill sets that can help? We often do tell people that have teams to get their team together to help with writing the SOPs or videotaping the SOPs, like Susan just said. But if you're starting out brand new, you're going to have to start with something yourself to give that new employee to help them. And then from there, if they find other ways to improve, or maybe they find ways to streamline as they understand and get used to working in your business, then they can be really valuable for that. but you want to avoid making it too hard for that brand new employee. Like they have to create everything themselves. So
So Robin, we've created a lot of training programs for this industry. Why have we found that having some formal training programs is better than on the job training and just training that way?
So a lot of the reasons that we created the programs we've created, so we have Knowing Dogs and we have Pet Guru College are our two formal training programs. And there's a couple reasons that we created one other than just the industry keeps kept asking for them. But one of them is that it does free you and your whoever is going to be training your team. It frees you guys up to actually lead the staff instead of just constantly micromanaging them and telling them the same thing over and over. And everybody gets the same training. So everybody gets on the same sheet of music. When we first developed Knowing Dogs and we put it out in the industry and people started using it, that was way back when it was on DVDs. That's how old it was. Then it went to USBs and now it's online. So it's been around for a while. It's proven, it's a proven formal training program for canine body language. When we first developed it, we thought that it would help your new employees. We were amazed at how many people said, I put my whole team and they totally talk different now. They're all on the same sheet of music. So you don't have that problem of one person's like, oh, I thought it was done this way because they've all gone through the same program. So you're making your training a lot easier because you have a program to follow, which now frees your team, your leaders up to actually lead instead of just constantly standing over someone's shoulder going to do this, because then they can't build relationships. They really can't build a team because they don't have time to do the team building stuff. They're too busy individually training one person at a time. So I think it helps for that. The other thing is, I also think it does standardize everything and it allows you to train on everything. Not if you're training, let's just use canine body language as an example. If you're training just with the dogs that happen to be in your facility, that's great. If you have a really well run facility, you're never going to see anything bad. So,
Never see any red behaviors
yeah,
or
you
even
will never
though
see those yellow or red behaviors that and be able to teach your staff how to intervene, because if you're running a really good facility, those things don't happen. They definitely don't happen when a good daycare handler is in the room with the dogs, because that person's going to do a whole bunch of stuff that will prevent those things from happening. Now, if you have a poorly run facility, yeah, you're just get a crash course in dog fights and that kind of thing, but that's not really how we want to train our staff. So by using a formal training program, you are going to see, like with Knowing Dogs, you are going to see your staff is going to see and understand what the early warning signs of aggression look like, because we have lots of other video footage, mostly from dog parks, things like that happening. So it helps with that too. It gives your staff a much more well-rounded examples of what they should be doing and looking for and seeing and how to intervene and that kind of thing. But the same is true for every role in your pet care facility. You're just going to have a better opportunity to teach everything they need to know, and you're not going to forget that, oh, we don't this person doesn't even know how to put a leash on. All of that stuff gets taught as part of the onboarding process for instance in Pet Guru College.
yeah, and the thing we liked about Pet Bureau College was we set up the staff training system. A lot of the content's the same, but the timing of when they get trained on things may vary. Whereas, like customer care, people would focus on customer service type information first, whereas with pet care people, we focused on body language first. And that's the thing you're going to want to do is once you have the outline of how your onboarding is going to work, you're going to need to customize some of the training curriculum and pieces based on the role they're in. And thinking about, again, what's the foundation knowledge and skills that you're going to build on. Everybody starts out with cleaning. It's easy to teach, and there's a lot to clean in a pet care business. So everybody can stay busy cleaning. But then what can they do? In customer care, you may teach them to answer the phone and to greet customers and take notes. They may do some vaccine data entry. What can they do right away to feel productive and help your business out? And we've built Pet Guru College with that flow already built in for you. Is one of the differences between it and Knowing Dogs. But Pet Guru College includes Knowing Dogs.
Yeah, and I just put a link if you want to see those two programs and save yourself the trouble of creating your own. Both of those programs, I put a link in there in the comments. So Stacy said, what platform is best for us to keep our training videos on YouTube, or is there something else? So I personally prefer, if it's for in-house, I personally prefer Vimeo because you can protect and hide the videos a lot easier than you can on YouTube. That being said, they work very similarly. You can host something on Vimeo and then hide it so only your team has access to it. You can set up Vimeo so that at the end of the video they don't see like now go here and they end up
Mhm.
on some like video of cat videos they're watching for fun or whatever. That's one
Yeah.
of the things I don't particularly like about YouTube. It's just harder to control what happens at the end of the video. But you can host them either way. The disadvantage with Vimeo is there is a fee to it. There is a free version of Vimeo depending on how much you want to upload every week or every month. So you might be able to get away if you just don't upload a ton all at one time for Vimeo, whereas YouTube is pretty much free. But I do find it's a little bit harder to control the access of YouTube. But either of those is good. The other option is that you can get some LMS software. So we have a professional LMS at the Dog Gurus because we needed tons of facilities to be able to access it. But so ours is called Docebo. That's not what I would recommend for an individual facility. It's way too
Robust.
robust for what you need. But they do have LMSs such as Teachable, which is a WordPress plugin as well. There's one called Memberium, which is also a WordPress plugin. So if you want something that is yours, those again cost money. And honestly, I would probably not go that route unless you were going to long term use that for some kind of a paid membership for your clients, just because there's fees involved with that as well. But there's a much higher learning curve with those. I would probably just stick initially with Vimeo or YouTube just because it would be easier. So
I think the
unless you
video
decide
has
you
a
want something long term to,
yeah.
have a membership site for your clients.
Yeah,
But
Vimeo's a fee, but it's not that expensive, I don't
yeah, it's a
recall.
couple $100 a year. It's really not that much. I just find it's the downside with Vimeo is reason people want to be on YouTube is it's one of the number ones next to Google. It's one of the highest search engines. But if you're protecting all that content anyway, that's not important to you. It doesn't matter for SEO. It doesn't matter for searchability, all that. If you're just using it for your team, I think it's better and cleaner and easier than YouTube. But again, it's a personal preference. So we actually use both at the Dog Gurus. We have a few things we still put on Vimeo, but obviously we have a whole YouTube channel which is not protected because we want people to be able to find content. And that's where all these videos end up after we record them on Facebook. We end up putting them on YouTube. So that's a good question though. All right, so onboarding I think is hugely important. I don't see any other questions in there, so we will wrap up. I'm just going to do you have any last minute things, Susan, before I talk about the Facebook group?
No, just really spend some time thinking about how you can make the first 90 days and maybe even year of a new employee's experience with your business more engaging, and see if making some changes there will help you keep people so you're not always in this replacing wheel. And I think that's what we're seeing is the people that do invest the time and energy into onboarding and spreading things out are finding they have higher retention rates.
Yeah, and I would say that industry wide, I think everywhere, but especially in the pet industry, we're definitely seeing that this constant flow of people that are like looking for a job is not there anymore. Where it used to be 2, 3 years ago, it was a lot easier to find somebody. Now it's harder to find people, so you're going to have to do a better job to keep them than maybe you used to. Some people used to not really worry about it. They were like, I got a whole stack of resumes here. I'll find somebody else. That's when I had my business. That's how I did it. I had a whole stack of resumes. I could just call somebody else and have somebody in the door. That's not the case now. That's the whole landscape has changed. So if you've never really looked at your onboarding process, this is now a great time to do that. It's January, so things generally slow down a little bit. They may not feel like they're slowing down if you're short staffed, but probably the best time that in the industry, it's probably one of the best times to really say, okay, I've got to get a handle on this. I've got to find time to fix this because we know summer's coming and you want to have the staff on board before summer comes and well even spring break before that if you're in an area where the schools are still in session. So definitely look at that.